It's time to talk movies. Something spooky and something bloody.
And television, including an edgy new Australian drama. And, of course, online.
It's time for Screen.
On Screen, we catch up with director Graeme and young actor Rahel Rahman to talk about the new SBS drama series, The Principal.
Did he actually hit you?
He touched me, grabbed me, whatever.
We take a look at a dramatic new adaptation of Macbeth, starring Michael Fassbender.
And we talk to Dr. Mark Cross about the centrepiece of ABC Mental Health Week, Changing Mind.
He's still calling himself Superman.
SBS often takes the lead in the drama stakes with its edgy, provocative portrayal of contemporary Australia. Think East West 101, Better Man and Saved, for example. Now they've come up with The Principal, a gritty look at life in one of the poorest and most culturally diverse secondary schools in Sydney. New principal, Matt Bashir, played by Alex Dimitriadis, is the last of a long line of people sent in to save Boxdale High. But he's different because he's an old boy of the school, and he's determined to turn around the disheartened and cynical staff and provide alternatives for the pupils.
I grew up less than 10 minutes away from here. I went to this school. Now, it might have one of the worst reputations in the state, but it's all that these kids have. It's all this community has. You give me 2 weeks to save the school, to make a difference.
All right, your eyes.
Dimitriadis is well supported by a striking young cast of actors, including Rahel Rahman, who plays student Tarek Ahmed.
Tarek, mate, you're hungry. We get it. You're not the only one fasting here. There's at least 5 others in this room.
No, the other faggots have been eating, sir.
All right, whatever. Just put your phone away, can you, please?
Yeah.
It's called a KFC home delivery. Tarek, put the phone away, now!
Rahel joins us today along with director Graeme. Welcome, gentlemen. Hi. Now, let me start with a question about where this actually began. I gather, I read, I think, in your production notes, that it began with a kind of variation on the inspirational teacher genre.
Yeah, well, I was sent, I guess, an outline of the episodes early last year through Ian Colley, the producer, and Rachel Turk, the producers from Essential. And, yeah, they pitched it to me as this, I guess, yeah, inspirational teacher story meets murder mystery. And I was automatically intrigued. It sounded like a great combination.
Rahel, can I ask you what your background is?
Sure. Kurdish from North Iraq.
Right. So can you relate to the world that's been created here?
Absolutely. Coming into a country, you know, from a third world country kind of to a first world country, there's quite a few cultural differences. Now, I came here at 3.5, so I'm not too familiar with how life was back at that age, but living with my family who are from there and living within a household, you feel as though you're almost in that culture regardless of where you are in the world. Yeah, so there is that kind of inner conflict and misunderstandings with family and the way culture, easygoing culture here versus the strict culture of a third world country. So, yeah, very, very interesting.
How did you get involved in acting?
I was always a little funny kid at school and just would say weird things, and so people responded to that. And eventually I was moved watching an Al Pacino performance, and that was in Scarface, and I guess I was a young and angry and misunderstood, and that was a great character that was just angry, and it made sense.
That's a little bit scary.
It is scary.
So you're self-taught, really? You taught yourself acting by looking at these rather violent characters?
Absolutely. I did a screen acting class, but mainly would really analyse the difference between the fantastic, memorable performances in the film world versus your, rather average, and then really identify what the differences were. And
what are you really trying to say with the series about contemporary Australia?
Australia is a very complex place now. There's a lot of issues going on. There's a lot of agendas going on, and I think the show really exposes the Australia that exists now, which is multicultural and conflicted and struggling to work out how all these identities can work together. So the show really taps into, I think, that zeitgeist.
Generically, you have a kind of almost burnished look to the film quality of it, which I thought was terrific. And it's got a kind of almost noir element to it, I think, in the way you shape it, the way the camera angles are worked, and the way you use colour and light.
Yeah, well, we call it suburban noir. I mean, I'm a big believer that, you know, television doesn't have to look like television, because I think now audiences are very literate. You know, they watch films, they watch TV, they just watch everything. So to me, there's no line between cinema and TV now. And as a director, my job is to be as cinematic and as visual as possible. So what was great, Ian and SBS and the whole team were very open to me about bringing a vision to the show and encouraged me to be bold. You know, wanted it to push some boundaries stylistically.
Rahel, what does this series mean to you, you know, dramatically?
Well, I was just based on my character, Tariq Ahmed, throughout the show. He's almost the symbol of the confusion of youth today, is in particular with their futures and where they want to head. Now, being in a country that gives you so many opportunities, it only makes you feel even worse when you're not achieving something, because everything is so tangible and it's so easy to become something. Well, it sounds easy, but you know, in that idea, in that all the opportunities are there. But with the principal's character and the relationship with my character, Tariq, what's beautiful is that we should be highlighting the children or the youth and their strengths rather than chastising them for their weaknesses. And
Well, you're both to be congratulated. It's a fabulous series. I cannot wait to see the end of it. I'm just sorry there's only 4. I want more.
Well, hopefully there'll be more to see.
Thank you both.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who's this?
It's Sissy's cousin Pig.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
Did you call him?
Call the dogs off now.
Gotta pay for what he's done, man.
Hey, the car is gone. Oh, it feels good, doesn't it? Huh? An eye for an eye. I heard you, you heard me back. Well, vengeance, it never stops. It just goes back and forth, and it gets bigger and bigger until it controls you.
I think this is a really impressive series, and I think not only that, it's a really important series. I think this is what SBS is really great at, you know, reflecting that other life that exists in Australia, you know, the multicultural world.
No,
Yeah.
I thought this was very good too. It started a little slowly, but I thought once the sort of the sort of Scandi noir tropes sort of cut in, it really gathered a kind of different life.
This young cast, you know, Rahel is fabulous in that role. He's got a very, very strong presence on screen.
Well, there's almost like a young Marlon Brando presence about him. He's just so visceral and so hard and tough, and then when the time is right, he's tender and sympathetic, and you know, he's an extraordinary young performer. He's everywhere at the moment as well. We've seen him in about 4 things recently at different films and so on. He's a real star, I think. Absolutely terrific actor.
It's so nicely written, and you know, you've got that basis of good drama when you have a good screenplay, I think.
What are you giving it?
I'm giving it 4 stars.
I'm giving it 4 stars as well, Margaret.
Oh.
It is very good.
Now to a new film adaptation of Macbeth by the Australian director Justin Kurzel. Shakespeare's Scottish play is set at a time of unrest. When Macbeth defeats a traitor of King Duncan in a bloody battle, he's rewarded by the king in a way that lends credence to the prediction of 3 witches.
Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis.
Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Codger.
This leads him and his wife, played by Marion Cotillard, to contemplate murder of the king. The political ambitions of Macbeth and his lady will have repercussions for many, both physically and psychologically, in this powerfully violent adaptation.
Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done.
Oh, what a film is this? It's a film full of operatic verve, full of sound and fury and battle scenes that seem to have come straight out of Kurosawa. It's absolutely terrific, I think.
I think it's this amazing leap for Justin Kurzel from Snowtown, which was this very grim, confronting story about the Snowtown murders, to this, you know, world stage. This was in competition in Cannes this year. It's extraordinary, the achievement that he's had in such a short space of time.
Well, the sheer cinematic scope of this film puts him up with master directors. I mean, he is now one of the leading sort of figures, the voices in world cinema. This film is absolutely astonishing to look at. Even at times, it's a little bit hard to follow, but then Shakespearean films often are. You sort of hang on to the odd word you can get. Dunsinane. Oh, we've got Dunsinane, that's good. Oh, Forest. Oh, we know Forest, so we're following the story. And they've truncated and rearranged the story as well, somewhat controversially, but I think very, very effectively.
Well, it's obviously been, you know, cut down in terms of, you know, dialogue, but I love the beginning of the film with the death of their baby. I mean, it just actually gives a beautiful substance to what follows, because this is my favourite Shakespeare play.
Not that they made everybody happy at the screening that I was at. There was a man right in front of me who stood up at the end with his wife and shouted, "Travesty! Travesty! Go away! Be damned!" I kid you not. And then he stumbled out, hoddling, you know, hovering, whatever. He was so angry. Whereas the rest of the crowd was sort of cheering and clapping.
Wow.
So it won't please everybody because of the sheer boldness and operatic nature of it, I think.
I'm giving this 4.5 stars.
I'm giving it 5. I've never seen Shakespeare done as well as this, even with Mr. Kurosawa and Mr. Kenneth Branagh, I have to say.
If you're looking for a slightly lighter take on Shakespeare after all of that rather intense Macbeth, Michael Fassbender, it looks fantastic, but just very intense, then I would suggest a little film that I found online called Shrewd, which, as the name suggests, is a snippet from William Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew.
Too light for such a swain as you to catch, and yet as heavy as my weight should be.
Should be? Should buzz.
Well ta'en and like a buzzard.
Oh, slow-winged turtle, shall a buzzard take thee?
Aye, for a turtle, as he takes a buzzard.
Come, you wasp, in faith, you are too angry.
If I be waspish, best beware my sting.
Look, I'm not sure if Mr. Branagh would be so pleased with that sort of sing-song delivery.
No, I think he liked it.
I think they're great, actually.
No, it's a bit drama school
they've
for
got
me.
such a good writer working for them.
He's all right, Shakespeare. He's done some good stuff, I've heard. Shrewd stars Helena Grace Donald and Robert Dukes, who also produced the short, and it also won the best film at the 2014 Filming Shakespeare competition, of which none other than Kenneth Branagh is the judge and patron, so he did like it.
Yeah, he did like it. Oh, there you go, Kenneth.
All the other films, actually all the shortlisted films for the 2014 Filming Shakespeare competition are up online, so it's actually a really good site to check out for just some solid Shakespeare content.
And now for a television series which takes us to the start of World War II, where deep in the English countryside a group of women face radical change as the conflict takes hold, and their husbands, sons and fathers leave them behind. In BBC First's Home Fires, the Women's Institute president and resident snob, Joyce Cameron, played by Francesca Annis, resigns under duress, and it's up to Frances Barden, Samantha Bond, and her supporters to resurrect the Institute and cement its ongoing role in the isolated community.
What the next months will deliver is unknown. But what is known is that together we shall endure whatever the future will throw at us.
Graeme, this is very, very cosy, safe television, don't you think?
It's for the Downton Abbey lovers.
Oh, I think Downton Abbey was actually a bit of a notch above this one.
Yes, it's got a bit very soapy.
There are so many cliches in this. I mean, you know, the Francesca Annis character of Joyce, you know, sort of like the local lady who thinks she can boss everybody. Oh, God, the abusive husband. Oh, my God, not again.
And the pacing is very drowse-inducing, the use of little songs and ditties. I quite like that as the thing progressed. I actually warmed to this in a strange way. I quite like the rather idiotic notion of saving the war with jam, which is what they do. In fact, it's based on a novel called Jam Busters, which I thought was rather cute.
I would give it 2.5 stars.
I'd give it 2.5 as well.
We'll be back after the break with M. Night Shyamalan's latest horror film, The Visit.
And Dr. Mark Cross will join us to talk about ABC Mental Health Week, and in particular the series Changing Minds.
Welcome back. Before we move to our next film, The Visit, let's look at some more television.
Last year, the ABC staged a corporation-wide week of content under the banner of Mental As to mark Mental Health Week. Now, one of the standout series was Changing Minds, which had extraordinary access inside the wards of one of the busiest psychiatric units in the country. Mental As returns again this month, and once again, Changing Minds is part of it.
This may sound crazy.
Look, I'm a psychiatrist. I can cope with crazy.
Dr. Mark Cross leads a team of doctors at the Campbelltown Hospital Mental Health Unit, and the focus is on younger patients, often facing their first bout of a variety of mental illnesses.
75% of people with mental illness have their first episode in the ages of 17 to 24. This is a specifically vulnerable group. This is where the majority of mental illnesses or mental disorders start. So therefore, this is of vital importance. We have to get it right in this age group.
We meet their parents and family support groups and hear their stories, which are challenging, moving, confronting, but often hopeful.
And it's our great pleasure to welcome Dr. Cross to the show. I'm really curious about the ethics of representing these quite ill people on air.
So the consent process, which obviously had to be good, was very robust. And that process, if you're talking about the ethics of showing people on television, we had to get their full consent, and they had to have capacity to give that consent.
Yes.
So we had initial consent, and often with manic patients, if they, they want, yeah, I'll be on television, yes, they'll put their hands up, but that's not valid consent. And especially if they're under the Mental Health Act, as many were, then the Mental Health Review Tribunal had to then be part of that consent process of each person.
Yeah.
And then when they were well, 2 psychiatrists met with each, and this is for the second series as well, and especially with the young people, with their families as well, when we did the consent when they were well.
Given that, what sort of interaction was there between the patients, yourself and your other psychiatrists, and the producers and directors on the day? Was there kind of like a side coaching thing going on? Was there interaction or intervention from the production side?
No, not at all. They were the ones that said, OK, you tell us who's ready to be filmed, and then we'll go with that. And, of course, they developed a good relationship with the staff and the patients themselves.
Were you ever worried about the impact of this exposure on your patients?
Yeah, that's a big thing. So you think, OK, what are we wanting to do here? We want to break down barriers of discrimination, stigma. We want to show that these are real people and their families and what they have to go through. And it's amazing. I mean, I've watched the first season now probably 20 to 30 times, and I still tear up. I hate having emotions, I'm not supposed to. But I do.
Oh, no, I think it's healthy.
Of course it is. And these are real stories of people who deal with these things every day of their lives.
I was just wondering how big a barrier there is about mental illness and the general population.
I've
opened a can of worms,
there's stigma and discrimination at all levels, even becoming a psychiatrist. Some of my peers at the time still will see you not as a proper doctor anymore.
I'm interested in the fact that it's not all doom and gloom, that there is a wonderful arc with some of these patients.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're talking about the majority of patients and people who deal with a lot of these illnesses recovering. Some people can have one episode of psychosis and never have another one. So the recovery model is really quite strong in our world now, and it's amazing and gratifying as a psychiatrist to see people who get well.
You use humour quite a lot in your interaction with the patients. Is that a normal thing to do?
I don't like the word normal, so let's not go there.
There's no normality.
It's normal for you, that's how I explain normality to people. And it's often, I know it's not quite answering your question, I'm coming back to that, but, people often say, I want to be normal. Well, let's look at what normal means for you. I've always used humour. It's about engaging, especially young people. Yeah. It's about engaging them. Yeah. Here I am trying to get you to acknowledge that you're unwell when all you want to do is go and, out and party. Yeah. And I'm also wanting you to take medication, which, although it's got better, has side effects. dreadful side effects. And if I don't try and do that with empathy and humour and try and work with someone rather than tell them what to do, it's not going to work.
Can we end with one of those lovely smiles that you showed me earlier? So, is that better than you expected? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, it's better than I expected.
What did you expect?
You to chew my head off.
Why would I do that?
I don't know, you look scary.
Yeah, that's great feedback.
Just one final question. I got very invested in the fate of Daniel.
His increasing anxiety is masked by a heavy addiction to cannabis.
It sounds stupid, but I just started smoking it every day because I was bored.
I want to know that he's really, really okay.
I saw him last week, and he said, I'm really looking forward to the show, and I want to be well for the show, and he's great. You know, all the patients are great.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been, I love the series. It's revelatory. And congratulations on it, actually.
Thanks for your support, and, you know, and I think it means a lot to the people in the show, knowing they're making a difference.
You get so frustrated, you can't really do anything but hurt yourself.
Every day is more of a challenge.
Julian, hang on, Julian!
I don't know what I'd do without my baby.
Well, what an interesting series this is. I mean, it's profoundly affecting, isn't it?
It's enormously engaging. And I think in that way, you know, breaking through that barrier of, oh, these people are, you know, mentally very upset for reasons beyond their control. And it can be scary for, you know, people who are not like that. And that's why I think this series, you know, really does chew through that barrier.
And I think it's a terrific example, too, of a genre that's really emerged in factual filmmaking, a kind of idea of television as kind of social worker, really. It's a kind of like an interventionist. It comes into our lives to sort of inform us about certain things and hope that we'll change our lives, you know, because we've watched that series. I think that's pretty impressive. And this one is done so brilliantly. It's almost as if at times it's fictional. The characters are so larger than life, and Dr. Mark Cross himself is such a wonderfully written character, even though he's for real.
I know. Did he write himself?
I think he probably did write himself. He's a psychiatrist. He probably can.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you. I think this is it's another really valid form of reality television. I think all those people were really brave to volunteer to go in it.
Yes, it's very, very affecting and quite beautifully produced. I must say the editor deserves an enormous round of applause.
200 hours.
And he or she just pulls it together with great, great skill. It's a beautiful bit of TV.
I'm going to give it 4 stars.
I'm going to give it 4 as well. We're agreeing today, Margaret.
This has got to stop. M. Night Shyamalan is well known for his unsettling dramas like The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, The Village and Lady in the Water. His latest is The Visit. Wanting to give their single mother, Catherine Hahn, a chance with her new boyfriend, Becca, Olivia de Jong and Tyler, Ed Oxenbould, go to visit their grandparents in a remote part of Pennsylvania.
I wanted to spend time with you for so long, Nana.
I have not seen your Nana this happy in years.
Their mother had broken off her relationship with her parents when she left home after an argument. So this is the first time the children have had a chance to get to know them. But things start to go bump in the night when Grandma, Deanna Dunnigan, goes just a little bit berserk and Grandpa, Peter McRobbie, has strange habits of his own.
I'm just cleaning it.
Woo, strange habits indeed.
Yeah.
Now, this is a pretty interesting movie, I thought. It's a very good example of what, you know, in the industry is called a found footage movie, because all the footage that we see is actually shot by the 2 children. It's shot from their point of view. They put the cameras on mantelpieces to film themselves. There's many, many different uses of it. And M. Night is very clever because a lot of found movies or footage movies tend to have pretty bad cinematography and very bad production values, but he's very clever within the shots, and there's a lot of detail. And but I did keep wondering at times, how on earth is she still holding that camera when all these other things are going on and she's got the camera pointing it around? But it's pretty fascinating, and I thought pretty entertaining because there's a lot of comedy in this as well.
Oh, well, not only that, I mean, I think the 4 performances in it are actually really good. I mean, it's surprising, you know, Deanna Dunnigan try and carrying off that role of granny, mad granny.
Mad granny, naked mad granny for a lot of us.
And, you know, and I mean, she alternates between being mad and being terribly caring and wanting to cook
Here
all
are the
these...
scones, children.
Yeah, all this stuff for the children.
Like some tart, Margaret.
Would you mind getting inside the oven to clean it?
Every film of this sort, resolution is difficult. There's always that feeling of slight letdown. I don't know whether it's because the tension's over or whatever, but I think resolutions are really, really difficult.
Yes, I quite enjoyed the resolution. We won't go into it, won't give that away. But I also enjoyed the kind of the kind of grim fairy tales elements in it. There's magic potions and elixirs that are referred to.
Woodsheds.
There's woodsheds and axes.
What does Grandpa do in the woodshed?
There are walks, sort of traipses through the forest as well, and magic ponds. There's a bit of all that stuff going on as well, which adds a kind of literary elusiveness to it, which I enjoyed enormously. And I did love the mirth. The boy, of course, is a rapper, a would-be rapper.
Yeah.
There's some very funny sequences with him, and the girls are film buff.
They're both Australian actors. It's amazing how well our young people are doing overseas.
Well, Ben's from the Oxenbould family. I think there's been many Oxenboulds around, actors and voiceoverists.
Olivia de Jonge is sort of like really solid in this. She was in Hiding, the ABC
She
series.
was indeed, yeah, which is a great series too.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars.
Well, Margaret, to disappoint you, I'm going to give it 3.5 as well. I am.
So, Tegan, what next?
I'm afraid I found another series online that is ridiculously addictive, and you're going to lose some time, unfortunately. Not too much time, but definitely a little bit. Human Postcards is a New Zealand-made series of 25 60-second short films directed by Nora Jacoud that explore the idea that everybody is a story. Its subjects are everyday people, from a gun tester to a nurse to a man who walked the length of New Zealand. But in each video, you get an intimate and often surprising insight into their life.
My first experience of death in a hospital is that a whole lot of cups went flying when I saw a man die. And I went running down the corridor. But no, I'm not afraid of death now. I've seen it too many times now.
I go to sea knowing that one day I might not come home. I've told my son that. He knows that one day Dad could go to sea and he might not come home.
They could be Scandi noir horror films or something. Look at them, they're bizarre. It's New Zealand, I suppose we should... No, we can't bag New Zealand people, but that is pretty weird down south New Zealand stuff, let's say. That is not John Clark, New Zealand.
I just like that they are so short. They're just 60 seconds, and it really... They're this great size, and you do just want to watch more and more.
It's the validation of the ordinary person, isn't it?
Thanks, Tegan. That was pretty horrible. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us on screen.
See you next week.
See ya.